a Edison coal-fired steam locomotive pulling the train, and I'm Mike, your conductor. For the safety of our younger riders, we ask that the adults with them place themselves on the outside of the road. If that's not practical, please make sure they're held or easily within your reach. And please stay seated while the train's in motion. Keep those arms and legs, and especially your heads, inside the rail car at all times. Please refrain from smoking, eating, or drinking anything but water aboard the Greenfield Village Railroad. Begin our journey to explore the sights and sounds of nearly 300 years of American innovation on display. I'd like to remind you Greenfield Village is divided into 7 districts, and our first is Henry's Model T. You can get a up-close and personal look at a real Ford Model T car, as well as a demonstration of Henry's kitchen sink engine at the Ford Motor Company building at the corner of Acme and Main, right here in Henry's Model T district. And that brings us to the birthplace of Henry Ford. Coming up on your left, it's the Ford Farm. Built here in Dearborn, Michigan in 1861. Not too far from here, what's now the corner of Ford Road and Greenfield Road, Henry was born in that white farmhouse in July of 1863 and lived there with his parents and 5 brothers and sisters. Now, all the way on your left, that red building is the William Ford Barn. It's where we take care of all the horses we use every day here at Greenfield Village. Up next, it's our Main Street district. Here you'll find the Wright Brothers home and the Wright Cycle Shop, the birthplace of aviation. Right across the street, find out about the 57 varieties at the Heinz home, where they first modeled horseradish. And be sure to take a spin on our 1913 Herschel Spillman Carousel. Don't forget, smack dab in the middle of Main Street, it's the center of the known universe. I'm talking about the frozen custard stand. It's like the best ice cream ever. They're open this morning at 11 o'clock. And we're now entering our Edison at Work district, and just beyond the picket fence is Thomas Edison's Menlo Park complex, where Edison and his staff of scientists and engineers developed the very first practical incandescent light bulb. The Menlo Park complex is America's first research and development lab, responsible for such innovations as the microphone, the phonograph, and over 800 other patents. Also coming up on your left, the mustard yellow building, is the Sarah Jordan boarding house where Edison's staff used to live. It's the first residential structure in the U.S. to be wired up for electric light. And we're now approaching the gateway to our Porches and Parlors district. That's the Acme Covered Bridge from 1832 in Pennsylvania. Just beyond the bridge lies the entire Porches and Parlors district, including the McGuffey School, the Hermitage Slave Quarters, the Noel Webster House, and the Robert Frost Home, just to name a few. Coming up on your left, the stone building, I should say, is the Cotswold Cottage, one of the oldest buildings here at Greenfield Village, built in 1620 in Chedworth, England. At the time, it was known as the Rose Cottage. was a very special Valentine's present from Henry Ford and his wife Clara in 1934 when they brought it here to Greenfield Village. Also on your left, the historic Susquehanna Plantation, built in 1825 in St. Mary's County, Maryland. A 700-acre tobacco farm. At the end of the road on the other side of our Ferris windmill is the Daggett Farm, a living history farm from 1754 in Andover, Connecticut. Stop in and see how Samuel Daggett and the family lived and worked on the farm prior to the American Revolution. At the head of our train today is the Thomas A. Edison. It's a coal-fired steam engine that was basically cobbled together back in 1932 at the Ford Rouge plant from an old 1868 Manchester, once owned by Thomas Edison. Fact is, though, Henry did not want a Manchester engine, he wanted a Mason. So he redesigned it to sort of kind of look like a Mason, and the result is the Franken engine we have today, the Thomas A. Edison, weighing in at 25 tons. So now, folks, let's take a moment to sit back and relax and enjoy the sights and sounds of railroading as it was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. In southeastern Michigan. Hundreds of trees have been planted and the waterways cleaned and cleared. And wildlife has returned with a herd of deer and many smaller animals as well, like rabbits, squirrels, and turtles. Birds too, like green and blue heron, egrets, and Canada geese. And we just passed part of our flock of wild turkeys.
Wow.
Porches and Parlors District. It's where we hold many of our special events throughout the year. And starting the second week in June, Walnut Grove will come alive with the crack of the bat and the roar of the crowd as old-time historic baseball returns to Greenfield Village. All summer long, our own La-Di-Da's and Nationals will take on other historic baseball teams, playing under rules written back in 1867, which include no spitting, no cursing, and no gloves.
No gloves. That's very nice.
Now up next, it's the Henry Ford Academy. Henry Ford Academy is a charter school here in Wayne County. Students attend for free but are chosen by lottery. This portion of the campus houses the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. 9th graders attend class at the Henry Ford Museum. Just up ahead, you'll see 3 attached rail cars. They serve as classrooms for the senior class. Imagine that, going to class in a rail car.
In a rail car. What do you think of that, Daddy? There's your school. In the car. Moving out of the box. Here's the canoes. For camp. See what else. Have down. Yeah, they would do it probably together. I think they would do it. Talk to them about it.
It's a weekend. You don't stay here, right? You get picked up every day. It's like a all day for a week, right?
That waterway on your left is the Swanee Lagoon. It's a rainwater catch basin, and we use it for flood control here at the village. More importantly, though, it's the home to Godzilla, one of the biggest turtles you'll ever see. And that old boy's been swimming in these waters since 1929. Also on your left at the top of the hill, it's a popular wedding spot. That's the Martha Mary Chapel, named after Henry Ford's mother and mother-in-law, Martha and Mary, of course. Also on your left, 2 of our restaurants. The Green Building is the Taste of History, this year featuring a special menu based on recipes from some of our historic sites, like the Daggett Farm, the Firestone Farm, and the Burbank House. Right next door, the White Building, is the Eagle Tavern. Built in 1832 in Clinton, Michigan, they offer up an authentic 1850-style dining experience, featuring locally sourced and seasonal favorites, served under candlelight by waiters and waitresses in period clothing. And that brings us to our next stop of the day, and that's Smith's Creek Station. From here, you have full access to Railroad Junction, Main Street, and Liberty Craft Works. You're leaving us here, please stay seated until the train comes to a complete stop. And I give you the go-ahead to exit on the left side only. Smith's Creek Station is your stop for Main Street and the Carousel, as well as Railroad Junction and the Roundhouse. And you're just a few short steps away from Liberty Craft Works and Henry's Model T. So please stay seated until the train comes to a complete stop and the engineer gives a blast of the whistle. That means the air brake is set. At that time, we'll give you the go-ahead to exit on the left.